I was in my private online forum, crafting a post with the kind of focus usually reserved for bomb defusal. I'm at my wit's end with this one, I typed, my fingers flying across the keyboard. He's so thin, like pinky finger thin. Is it normal for them to be this limp, so weak he can't even hold his head up? A sudden, violent bang echoed through the room as my bedroom door was thrown open. My husband, Redmont Montgomery, stood there, his jaw tight, his knuckles white on the doorknob. Don't think for a second, he hissed, his voice a low growl that vibrated with barely suppressed rage, that saying things like that will get my attention. He slammed the door shut, leaving me staring at the wood, my heart hammering against my ribs. I glanced down at the glass terrarium on my dresser. Inside, Pip, my new baby ball python, was curled into a tiny, unmoving knot. I sighed. This was going to be a problem. Our marriage contract was cold, clean, and brutally efficient, much like the man who'd presented it to me on our wedding night 1 year. That was the deal. I would play the role of the dutiful Mrs. Montgomery to help him secure controlling interest in his family's company, Keystone Holdings. In return, he would provide the alliance my family's struggling business desperately needed, plus a generous settlement upon our amicable divorce. The most important clause, underlined in black ink, was Clause 7, no emotional entanglement, no feelings, no intimacy, no problem. I had thought, 3 months in, we were excelling at that part. We lived as ghosts in the same sprawling estate, 2 ships passing in the night with nary a ripple. He worked, he went to the gym, he played golf, I read, I managed the house staff, and I secretly tended to my small collection of exotic pets. It was a perfectly hollow, perfectly stable arrangement until Pip. An hour after the first door slamming incident, I was on a call with the vet. Yes, his body is just very soft, I explained, my voice hushed as I paced my room. Limp, and he seems to have no strength at all. He can't even lift his head. The door to the hallway creaked. I froze. I heard the distinct sound of Rhett's footsteps pausing outside my room, then continuing down the hall. My blood ran cold. He'd been listening. Later that evening, I was at my vanity researching high-protein diets for malnourished reptiles when the door swung open again. No knock. Never a knock. What were you talking about on the phone? He demanded, standing stiffly in the doorway. I was at the hospital. I lied smoothly, my mind racing. A checkup, I see, he said, his voice dripping with ice, and the doctor confirmed it. Confirmed what? That it's a pre-existing condition. He ground out, the words sounding like they were physically painful for him to say. From before you met me. I just stared at him, utterly baffled. Yes, I said slowly, deciding to just agree with whatever insane narrative was playing out in his head. It's a genetic thing, nothing to be done. His expression hardened into something unreadable. Fine, he clipped, and then he was gone. I was beginning to think my husband was losing his mind. The next evening, I was halfway through dinner, a blessedly solitary affair, when I heard the shower in his master suite turn off. I braced myself. Sure enough, a few minutes later, he descended the grand staircase, wearing nothing but a low-slung white towel wrapped around his hips. I choked on my quinoa. Water droplets glistened on his sharp collarbones and traced paths down a torso that was all lean muscle and stark definition. His abs were, clearly absurdly, an 8-pack. I had forgotten how to swallow. The air suddenly felt thick, scented with the expensive citrus and sandalwood scent of his body wash, a fragrance I now realized was named bergamot drift. He strolled to the dining table, the towel clinging precariously to his waist, and looked down at my half-eaten plate. You started without me, he asked, his voice a low rumble. We had never, not once in 3 months, eaten a meal together unless his parents were present. You never said I had to wait. I managed, my eyes fixed firmly on a very interesting spot on the wall behind him. We have a contract, remember? His jaw clenched. Right, the contract, he said, his voice laced with a strange bitterness. No need to wait, not for anything. After all, we're just a transaction. He turned and walked away without another word, leaving me alone with the scent of bergamot and a dangerously racing pulse. This man was not playing fair. Jen, I'm desperate, I whispered into my phone the next day, huddled in the walk-in closet. Jen was my best friend and a divorce lawyer, which made her uniquely qualified to handle my life's particular brand of chaos. You have to let me borrow Brutus. Selah, we've talked about this, she sighed. Brutus is a champion. He has a waiting list. He doesn't do charity work. It's not charity, it's an emergency. I pleaded. My Penelope is 3.5. She's in her prime and he's so potent. 1 session is all it would take. Fine, she relented. 1 time, if it takes, you owe me a big, fat bonus. Done, I chirped, blowing a kiss into the phone. That night, a strange restlessness filled the house. I was about to go to sleep when my phone buzzed with a text from Rhett, from the room right next to mine. Asterisk, come to my room now. Asterisk, I rolled my eyes. Asterisk, what is it? Asterisk, there's a snake in here, a big one. My heart skipped a beat. Penelope, impossible. She was secure in her terrarium. Reluctantly, I slipped out of bed in my silk camisole and shorts and padded over to his room. The door was ajar. I pushed it open to find him lying flat on his back on the bed, shirtless, with only a thin sheet covering his lower half. I scanned the room with my phone's flashlight. The corners were empty. The space under the bed was clear. There's no snake in here, Rhett, I said, annoyed. Are you going senile in your old age? I turned back to him, ready to unleash a tirade, and then I froze. He had sat up, and the sheet had slipped. He wasn't wearing anything, and there was, in a manner of speaking, a very large snake in the room. After all, it's a little warm in here tonight, he said, his voice husky, his face flushed. My brain short-circuited. I turned on my heel, marched to the wall thermostat, and jabbed the cool button until the AC roared to life. There, I said, not looking at him. Problem solved. I fled back to my room, locking the door behind me and leaning against it, my body trembling. Holy hell, the man was insane, and I was in so much trouble. The drive to his parents' house for the obligatory Sunday dinner was excruciatingly silent. I stared out the window of the Bentley, watching the manicured lawns of Greenwich, Connecticut, blur past. I could still feel the heat from his room. The image of him seared into my brain. Are you still angry about the other night? I asked finally, just to break the tension. He kept his eyes on the road, his grip tight on the steering wheel. We could just make this easier on ourselves, I ventured, thinking aloud. We could agree to see other people, discreetly, of course. We'll just cooperate for appearances. The car didn't swerve, but I felt the energy inside it shift, becoming sharp and dangerous. So that's your solution, he said, his voice dangerously low. We just play our parts here. here and you go get what you need somewhere else. I mean, yes, I said, isn't that the most logical path? It would solve everyone's problems. You think my problem is logic, Selah, he shot back, his gaze flicking to me for a split second, hot and intense. The car's engine seemed to roar in protest. He said nothing for the rest of the drive. When we pulled into the long, winding driveway of the Montgomery family home, he cut the engine and turned to me. Just so we're clear, he said, his voice devoid of all warmth, as long as you are my wife, there are no other people. He got out of the car, leaving me to stare after him, a cold dread washing over me. This was no longer a simple business transaction. This was a cage. Dinner was a masterclass in polite, upper-class torture. Mrs. Montgomery, a woman with perfectly coiffed silver hair and a smile that never quite reached her eyes, was in fine form. Rhett, darling, you look tired, she said, placing a serving spoon of oysters onto his plate. You work too hard. It's so important for a man to maintain his vitality. I nearly choked on my water. The table was laden with food that seemed to have been chosen from a medieval fertility guide: oysters, asparagus, walnuts, all the usual suspects. Then came the main event. After the plates were cleared, Mrs. Montgomery produced a sleek, elegantly packaged bottle from her purse. Brenda was telling me her son and his wife are trying for a baby, she announced to the table at large, her eyes fixed on me, and she swears by this. It's a special men's vitality complex all the way from a private clinic in Switzerland. She placed the bottle on the table next to Rhett's plate. I took the liberty of getting you some, she said with that bright, unwavering smile, just to help you. Keep up your strength. The silence was deafening. Rhett looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. I decided to intervene, partly out of pity, mostly out of a desire to end this nightmare. Oh, mother, you're too kind, I said, my voice sweet as poison, but you shouldn't worry about him. I placed a hand on Rhett's arm, feeling the muscle jump under my touch. The truth is, he's so dedicated to his work at Keystone, and then he comes home and insists on taking such good care of me. It's understandable that he's a little overexerted sometimes. I let the words hang in the air. Overexerted. Rhett's head whipped around to look at me, his eyes wide with disbelief and a dawning horror. Mrs. Montgomery's smile finally faltered. Oh, she said, I see. The rest of the dinner passed in a thick, uncomfortable silence. On the way home, Rhett drove like a man possessed, the Bentley eating up the miles on the dark, empty parkway. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The fury radiating from him was practically a physical force. I had tried to help him, but I had a sinking feeling I had just made everything 1,000 times worse. Back in the sterile silence of our shared est.